Let's rewind to when President Trump was in the White House and China was in his crosshairs, especially on trade. He believed the US was getting a raw deal, so he threatened big tariffs. Apple, the tech giant behind your iPhone and MacBook, was suddenly in the spotlight. The plan? A massive 25% tariff on Apple products imported from China, which is most of them. This wasn't a minor tweak. Imagine a quarter of your iPhone's price tacked on overnight. The move was part of a broader strategy to rebalance trade with China, but Apple, with its global supply chain rooted in China, was in a tough spot. The threat sent shockwaves through the tech world and Wall Street. Apple's fate impacts everyone, from investors to everyday consumers. The big question, would Trump really go through with it, and what would Apple do? It was high-stakes international poker, with your gadgets on the table. Suddenly, the future of your next iPhone was up in the air. Would prices skyrocket? Would Apple shift production? The world was watching and the stakes couldn't be higher. This was more than a policy debate. It was a battle over the future of tech, and Apple was right in the middle. Tariffs. What are they really? Think of them as a tax slapped on imports by the government. If you import goods, you pay extra at the border. That cost usually gets passed on to you, the consumer. So, a tariff is basically a tax on things made elsewhere. The goal? Make domestic products look cheaper, punish other countries, or raise revenue? Sometimes all three. It's a blunt tool in the world of international trade. And like any blunt tool, it can backfire. Tariffs can make everyday items more expensive, they can spark trade wars, and they rarely work out as simply as politicians hope. In the end, it's often regular people who foot the bill. So, when you hear tariff, think higher prices, more drama, and a lot of unintended consequences. Why target Apple with tariffs? Trump's America First plan aimed to bring manufacturing jobs back to the US. The idea make Chinese-made iPhones expensive, and Apple would move production stateside. Simple in theory, but not in reality. The second goal? Pressure China economically and politically. The administration accused China of unfair trade, IP theft, and currency manipulation. Tariffs were the stick to force China to negotiate. It was a trade war, tit-for-tat tariffs, escalating tensions. Apple was caught in the crossfire. The hope was to hurt China and make US companies rethink their supply chains. But moving factories isn't easy or quick. The real result? Uncertainty for Apple and its customers. The global tech industry braced for impact, and the iPhone became a pawn in a much bigger game. The stakes were global, and the outcome was anything but certain. So what if Apple faced a 25% tariff? Most Apple products are made or assembled in China. Suddenly, every device would cost Apple a lot more. Apple had three choices: absorb the cost, pass it to consumers, or split the difference. Absorbing it would crush profits. Shareholders wouldn't be happy. Passing it on? Your $1,000 iPhone could jump to $1,250. That's a big leap. Enough to make people think twice. Demand could drop, sales could tank, or Apple could try a mix, but it'd still hurt. Competitors not hit by tariffs might gain an edge. The supply chain, built over decades, would be under strain. Apple's global strategy was suddenly at risk. The company faced tough decisions, fast, and the ripple effects would reach far beyond Apple. It was a high-stakes gamble with billions on the line. Facing a tariff crisis, Apple's Tim Cook didn't panic, he got diplomatic. Cook met with Trump, even dined with him, making Apple's case directly. He argued tariffs would hurt not just Apple but American consumers and jobs. Cook pointed out Apple's investments in the US, like the Mac Pro made in Texas. He warned that tariffs could help foreign competitors, not American workers. Apple filed formal objections, wrote letters, and made public statements. They explained their supply chain couldn't just move overnight. Quietly, Apple also started looking at other countries for manufacturing: Vietnam, India. It was a multi-pronged approach: talk, lobby, and prepare for the worst. Cook's strategy was to protect Apple and its customers. He walked a tightrope between politics and business. The company had to be ready for anything. Apple's response was measured but urgent. The stakes: billions in revenue, millions of customers. Cook's diplomacy may have changed the outcome, and Apple's future was being negotiated behind closed doors. So, did the tariff plan work? Not exactly. The full 25% tariff on Apple's main products never fully hit thanks to lobbying and negotiations. Some products faced tariffs, others got exemptions or delays, but the threat alone had consequences. If tariffs had hit iPhones, prices would have soared for American consumers. Make America Great Again could have meant make your iPhone more expensive. Apple didn't move all its factories to the US. It's not that simple. Building electronics factories takes years and billions. Apple did expand some US operations, but most production stayed in China. Instead, Apple and others started looking at Vietnam and India to diversify. The jobs didn't flood back to America, they spread across Asia. The policy didn't force the intended outcome. It just pushed companies to rethink their global strategies. Big, blunt tools rarely deliver neat results, and the world's supply chains kept evolving. What changed for Apple? The trade war sped up their move to diversify production. India and Vietnam became bigger players, but China remains crucial. The saga revealed how complex and sticky global supply chains are. You can't just shift them overnight. Tariffs are blunt instruments. They often backfire or create new problems. Higher prices, shifting jobs, and global uncertainty are common side effects. For tech companies, resilience and flexibility are now top priorities. The era of pure cost-driven globalization is evolving. Companies are weighing political risk and supply chain security. The Apple tariff drama was a wake-up call for the whole industry. Geopolitics now shapes where your gadgets are made. The future? More fragmented, more complex. Tech giants will keep navigating these choppy waters. So next time you check your phone's price tag, remember, it's all connected. Trade wars aren't just headlines, they're in your pocket, and the story isn't over yet.